tuning in into God's thoughts. His thoughts are too overwhelming for us. As I mentioned before, Isaiah 55, 8-11, I read that again. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, says the I Am. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. For as the rain comes down and the snow from heaven, and returns not thither, but wavereth the earth, and makes it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. God's thoughts we cannot reach on our own. We must have His help to tune in into His ways of thinking and into His plans for our lives. We know that when God speaks, it creates realities. We see that in Genesis, first chapter. So God's thoughts and words contain supernatural energy and creating power. If we would learn to think and to speak alongside with Him, imagine what we could be able to accomplish with our lives on earth. I have heard our main teacher, which is Andrew Womack, say that all ministers that he knows, our main teacher is the Holy Spirit, but we learned a lot from Andrew Womack, and we acknowledge that. Andrew Womack said, all ministers that he knows that walk in supernatural healing, they all speak in tongues, because it is a fully inspired prayer language. You know, our natural mind always interferes in the prayer and limits it, sometimes kills the faith that wants to come up. It's a fully inspired prayer language that we cannot diminish with our limited and unbelieving understanding, because it just bypasses our natural minds. And that is a wonderful invention that God did. It helps us. It helps you. You don't switch off your natural mind. It stays on, of course, but it goes down from its throne. Access to inspiration and revelation, and an introduction to learn prophecy by training to exercise the gift by training to exercise the gift of interpretation of tongues. Prophesying is a unique gift. If you want to prophesy, you need to let go of controlling your speech, because it should be the Holy Spirit that speaks through your mouth and not you. Would you agree with that? Would you agree with that? When we read some prophecies in the Old Testament, we often see that the person that does it talks in ways that seem to be sometimes a bit confused concerning times and places and persons that they address. There are often messages of judgment prophesied in a detailed way, and suddenly in the midst of it, God seems to address another time and speaks of His grace that He assures to His people. Genuine prophecies, which predict any future events, can in no way be produced by our natural mind or by natural means. You know, the natural mind is overtaxed with talking and determining anybody's future. It takes a courage to speak of the future of someone that we naturally don't have. So we need to learn to let go of our mindful speech control in order to dare to let someone else speak through us and prophesy through our mouths. And that is exactly what speaking in tongues, among other things, train you, learn, makes you to get used to. My wife and I started some years ago to train ourselves in this regard, to learn the interpretation of tongues. We've heard a message which was a simple instruction how to learn to speak this interpretation of our tongues. The son of a world-renowned preacher and very successful evangelist taught about this. He said, just speak in tongues for 5 minutes, asking God to give the interpretation afterwards. And then, after 5 minutes, stop talking in tongues and be still for a moment. The very thoughts that then come into your mind, those thoughts just formulate. Just start speaking after those thoughts. And then go on speaking if there comes out additional thoughts. No? As we did that, we just started to talk the very thoughts that came after 5 minutes speaking in tongues, and then just let go, and whatever comes out of your mouth. And there came out very encouraging words and sentences, as well as detailed information about God's plan for our future. We then wrote that down with date and questions and put it in a notebook for further evaluation later on. The good thing by prophesying or interpretation of tongues is that the others have to judge. As Paul says in 1 Corinthians 14:29, he says, let the prophet speak 2 or 3 and let the other judge. You know, the prophet is not the king of the congregation. He's a servant. He speaks something out of the supernatural world when he has trained to do so, but the other judge whether it's from God or not, or whether they want to accept that or not, you know. That is a very wonderful safety measure, and by doing this we can assure that no false spirit or false prophecy gains influence into the church. 1 Thessalonians 5:20-21 says, despite not prophesying, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. The word translated here as prove refers to a very thorough investigation process, such as that used by the ancient Greeks for politicians in their city-states. The safety and the well-being of the citizens were dependent on reliable characters of those elected politicians. In the same way, we have to prove all messages that we will not invite a Trojan horse, so to speak, in our fellowships. But keeping those advices enables us to use the critical gift of speaking in tongues and trying to interpret or prophesy. And it all can be trained by starting with speaking in tongues, as I explained before. And thereby we gain access to God's revelations and inspirations. Before I go into the day, I often pray an hour in tongues, because I know that my mind tunes into God's Holy Spirit's thoughts and words.